Hey all, it's Denise and I'm in my studio this afternoon. It's pretty rainy here and I'm editing the video that I'm putting out this week for studio session 146. However, most of the project is down in my other studio and I'm here. So trying to figure out how to get this to meld together, but I think I will. And it's another collage project that I've been working on, a continuation of what I was doing last week, just a little bit more of that. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you for being here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Okay, so here I am back on my table, and I have two pieces. I believe they were 12 by 12 or 14 by 14. I'm not really sure. I very often will haunt thrift stores and Goodwill and go right to their art department and see what I can find in the way of cradle boards, what I can find in the way of gallery wrapped canvases, or a different substrate that I can work on, and you can usually get them. I think I paid $2.99 for each of these, which I thought was a steal. And then they've always got something obviously on them. In this case, these two pieces had quotes on them, but I love taking something that's already been worked on, whether it be mine, whether it be somebody else's, and work right over that, because I love having that that history there. I love having the colors there. I love having elements that I might be able to use in my own work. So in this case, I'm covering up the text and just leaving bits and pieces of it to show. I like to have that little bit of black. I think having a little bit of black, even though these have a lot of black, I think having a little bit of black really sets a piece off and makes it a little bit more sophisticated. So I'm using my jelly papers, and they're a variety of papers, whether it be deli paper or old vintage office papers, newsprint. I very often, actually most of the time, use my jelly plate to make papers that I can use in my art. I don't very often try to make art with my jelly plate, but I get some really great surprising papers that show up when I do jelly plate, as I'm sure you do too. You know what I'm talking about. Those papers that look like an old wall, or they just do really cool textural things that you just can't for the life of you paint on your own. So I use those papers to cover things up and get my composition going. And as I go along, I'll add a few more elements. So what I'm going to do is speed this up a little bit so you can watch me glue down paper. Nothing more fun than that. Although I do find it really fun. I love watching people do this kind of stuff. I found it really relaxing. So relax into it. I'm going to speed it up, and I'll jump back in when the time is right. Okay, so now it's time to add a little bit more detailed papers and a little bit more design elements. I'm sure, or I think, you've all used paper napkins before, and the little cocktail napkins or decorative napkins are so great to use. You just need to know they are 3-ply, and you need to get the 2 back layers off so that the front layer will stick on nice and smoothly. And with that being said, you have to be very delicate because now it's a really, really thin tissue paper. And no matter how careful you are, usually somehow I tear them. And I believe I ended up doing a little tear in both of these because once that paper gets wet, whoops, there it is. There's that tear right in the middle. But not to worry when that happens because there's always something you can do to just cover it up. And I believe on both of these I get little tears, but not worried. Again, I just want a little touch of the black and white to pull the outer frame of black into the piece, along with the text that I liked in the black. So I've got those down. Now, typically I do like to lay my tissue papers down last. It doesn't always work out that way because they are so delicate. And they tear so easily, as I've said. But there's always something you can cover them up with. So at this point, now I'm just pulling little bits and pieces of paper that will work with the composition, that will work with the colors that I'm using. And I also, since I'm doing 2 of them, I want them to go together. I don't really want them to be, exactly alike. But if I'm adding an element in one of them, I want to add it into the other. It may be in a different color, a different shape, but I want them to look like they belong together and yet are a little bit different. And one of my favorite things to add is a little piece of artwork, a little piece of something that you recognize that's not so abstract-y or just papers laid out. So while I lay these papers out to continue with color, I also have some of my business cards that I had made with Moo Designs, and they have pieces of my art on them. And if you've used the Moo cards before, you know that you can make like 50 different photos on your cards all at once. You can have, every card can have a different photo. So I love to do that. And they come in handy when I'm doing my artwork. So you'll see where I add those in, along with, I have some cheesecloth here that I've rusted, and it just adds a nice texture. Some of these pieces are canvases. That's why I can't tear that. They're canvases that have paint on them from an old painting. So I cut those up and add those in for a chunk of color. Just a little bit of everything. now that I've got most of my solid, larger pieces of papers down as my background, as my foundation, then it gives me room to come in and add some different elements. Like right here, I'm adding an old 75-cent ad from a very old magazine that I came across. Or I might add text from a book or a magazine, cut out things, little pictures, I love that little chickadee. I don't end up using it, but I'm saving it for something special. Stamps, anything that helps start focusing in more on a design element rather than just papers, colored papers laid out on the surface. I save my favorite things. I save the little details. I save the prints and the smaller interesting things for my final layers. And it's always nice to keep some of your papers to continue adding, to kind of break up the design or enhance something, or to help carry the eye where you want it to go. I like to add papers that kind of go off the canvas because it helps expand your piece of art. It opens it up. So I oftentimes will add pieces of paper that wrap around, either go left to right, or sometimes they go top to bottom. It just helps the eye expand. I also really like to wait until I'm getting closer to the end when I can look at a piece and come back and add just a pop of unexpected color. There's really no orange going on in the rest of this piece, but that little bit of orange with the gold laying on top of it is just exactly what it needed. Okay, finally, here are the cards, my business cards that I was speaking about earlier. These are cards that each and every card had a different photograph, a different picture of a piece of my art. This one is a bowl with green apples in it, and I like the realistic detail that it gives to this composition of papers, and much more abstract and graphic, and doesn't really mean a lot of anything. Kind of gives meaning to the piece. It also helps push the rest of the piece to the back. Kind of makes this a focal point. And I know I'm putting it right in the middle of the painting, but there are rules. Rules say don't put it in the middle of the painting, but I like it. I think it works there. So I'm not too worried about the rules as long as I feel good about it. And I think that's really important when you're doing artwork. If you like it, if you feel good about it, really, that's what matters. So here are some of the other cards that I was deciding on. And the one that I chose is actually a business card with a photograph of it on it of a painting that I just sold. So it was kind of nice to be able to have this little memory of that painting because it was one of my favorites. And again, just adds a nice little focal point to it. And now I'm getting ready to finish this piece off. It started out with a black background, and I like that. I actually was going to do the white plaster, a creamier plaster around that. And then it was suggested to me by one of my studio mates to keep the surround area black. It was a little bit more dramatic. And I think that was a good choice, a good plan to do. If I didn't like it, I could always go over it with the cream again, a lighter plaster, but I did really like the way that the black surrounded this piece. And I go right over the all of the papers that hang off on the edge. I think that's fine, and it integrates everything together with the painting. So what I did is I had a really heavy-bodied black acrylic paint, and it was mostly really heavy-bodied because it was old. So it was kind of nice to just trowel it on and create some more texture with it and let the other colors underneath. There's kind of a green black underneath there, as you can see, and I wanted some of that to still come through, and I just went with the black paint and did all the surround, and that is, I think, pretty much what I needed to do to finish these pieces off. Now, I did add a little bit more detail after I turned the video camera off, of course. So you'll see that in the final photos that I did take a copper pen and a gold metallic pen and create a little bit more of a detail around it within the black. And I think it looked really nice, and it really helped finish it off. So there you go. I keep talking, and mostly I just was really happy with how these pieces turned out. Okay, so I just make sure that I finish off everything as long as I have the paint out, do my sides, take care of all the odds and ends before I continue on with my final pieces, my final details. And you'll see that in the photos at the end. And then, of course, no piece of mine is really complete without my Stabilo pencil. I just love to go in and scribble. I love to scribble. I like to make circles. I like to make lines. I just love how the Stabilo gives me the ability to add some little details, add another element, and I really enjoy, once I get it drawn on, to hit it with some watercolor, some water, so it turns into, it kind of runs and gets that watercolory effect. I love it. So that is one of the last things that I do on the actual piece. I will play around, like I said, with the surround on the black, and you'll see that at the end. But yeah, these were really fun. I love doing these. And if you haven't done a few yourself already, which I kind of suspect you have, do give this a go. Do give it a try. It's so much fun. It's so much fun just to pull out papers and scraps and photographs and little pieces of memorabilia that you enjoy and your Stabilo pencil and just play. It's a great area to play on. You don't have to be too committed with it. They're small pieces. If they turn out fantastic, if they don't, you just paint over them. And that's the beauty of what we get to do with our art. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for watching as always. This next week I'm going to be starting on some new paintings in the studio, so I'll be sure to share those. And yeah, I'll see you next week. I'll see you next Saturday in my next studio session. Have a really great week and make it a really great week. Bye-bye.